It is Sunday morning. The marketplace is officially open, and we're going to discuss any and everything related to Babylon 5. We're going to specifically get down to the nitty gritty of who these characters are, these little chess pieces floating about the Babylon 5 board. What do they really stand for? What is their purpose, and why are they moving about the board the way that they are? That's what we're doing here. My name is Char. If you don't know who I am, if this is your first time viewing, hello and welcome. My co-host Norm is out on a very super secret, important away mission. It's Ranger stuff. It's classified. We can't talk about it, but just know that he's doing fine. We've been kind of in incognito contact. He's still around. We're good. So I really appreciate him for covering for me. Last week, he ran the show on his own as I am running this show by myself. Last week, I was a little under the weather, and 1 hour before the show was supposed to go live, I said, you know what, bro? I can't do it. And he said, don't even worry about it, and handled it with plenty of grace. So thank you, Norm. And I hope all of you join me for this. We're going to get down to the nitty gritty of who are these people and what do they want? The ultimate questions, right? Yeah. So, as we do every morning, we have our little drink because, drinking was initially a big part of this show. We were broadcasting Wednesday nights, and so we had our versions of Brivari. Now that we do Sunday morning, I don't necessarily go for the Brivari, but I do have to have a drink because if I'm going to speak for an hour straight, I need to keep the mouth lubricated a little bit. Sorry, I just hit the microphone. Hello, Terry Jones. Thank you so much for joining me. I appreciate it. I salute you, sir. Valtoul. And what I am drinking is my lunchtime special, which is Diet Mountain Dew, filled with chemicals and caffeine and all the things that keep me going in life. So we're doing that. All right, let me pull up my notes here. Now, Norm did a great job last week of going through the notes that I did give him, which were just basically little bullet points. It wasn't a whole heck of a lot to go off of, but he did a decent job. I'm going to go into more detail, though. Since I get to run this show, I get to talk all that I freaking want, and there's not a whole lot you can do about it except turn me off when you get sick of hearing me. So we're going to do exactly that. Okay, now where the heck are my notes? There they are. Okay. Good morning, Daniel Keller. How the heck are you? Thank you so much for joining us this Sunday morning. I don't know about you guys where you are, but here in Southern California, it's summer again, all over again. We had maybe 3 days of fall, and now we're back to hitting the high 80s and 90s again, and it's a little hot in here. So if you hear a little buzzing, it's because I've got a fan in the background because I'm already a little warm, and I'm in the room with the least amount of ventilation. Go figure. Hello, Slice of Sci-Fi. Thank you for joining me. I see the numbers going up and up. All right, we are waking up. In Valen's name, it is awake. Let's get to it, shall we? Okay. So, when you strip away the names and the titles and the duties of our characters, at the core of it, what is their being? What is their purpose? What motivates them? What matters most? And how does that guide these characters' roles in the story? That's kind of my rationale for essentially the simplification of using as few but as concise of words to describe our characters. And Norm said that my answers were what the characters would say when answering these questions. That was actually half right. Regarding their cause, that's correct. Like if you ask them, what is your cause? My answer is what I feel they would say. But with the who are you, it's kind of me editorializing a little bit. It's how I see their parts moving through the story, as I just said a moment ago. So let's start at the very top, shall we? John J. Sheridan, our hero. Who is he? He is the center of change. He is the man making it all happen, right? At the heart of it all, he is the one making this happen. So that is kind of the phrasing that I put out there for him. What does he want? He wants to fight for and defend for the truth. Because at the heart of it, that is, I think, what matters the most to him. I think that's why he joined Earth Force, is because that was a cause he believed in that was just and good. And then eventually when he had to break away from Earth, he had to let go of that because there was a new truth what he knew of Earth Force was no longer the cause he believed in, and he had to give up that uniform. And that was really painful for him. But then it has led to everything else. So, things change. Change can be hard, but change can also be very good. And of course, his cause is paving the way for intergalactic peace by becoming the president of the Interstellar Alliance, fighting for what is right. He doesn't start the fight, but he always finishes it. That's our John J. Sheridan. Now, as I go through these, excuse me, I really need a drink already. It is so dang hot in this room. Oh my God. Make it stop. I can't handle it, man. As we go through, you guys chime in with your comments. I want to know if you agree with me. Do you disagree with me? Are there things that I'm forgetting? Please let me know. I want to discuss. I want this to be a great dialogue. There's several of you who have tuned in at this point. I want to know your thoughts. I don't just want to be yakking into this mic the whole time without a little bit of back and forth. And without Norm here, that is much harder. So I'm going to count on you guys to help me out a little bit. And Terry coming right through, right out of the gate. Thank you, buddy. He says he wanted to serve something greater than himself. Yes, that is John Sheridan. Again, another reason why he joined Earth Force, right? He says, and I don't remember exactly where, but he wanted to be a part of something bigger than just him, right? Well, that's why a lot of people take up a cause, is because they believe in something bigger than themselves. They're just a part of it. And yeah, that's very important to John Sheridan. And it just transitions from one thing to the next as far as what that is. So very cool. Thank you, Terry, for that comment. How about we move over to Susan Ivanova? I actually went through my notes, I think a few days ago, and updated. And Ivanova is one of those updates. Now, who is she? She is reliable in the face of upheaval, but she is also a stabilizer. I added that because think about her role in this is, while John is out sometimes doing crazy, hero away missions or what have you, what is she doing? She's holding down the fort. She is keeping CNC running. She is keeping the station running. In his absence, she is the person in control. She's keeping things rolling because somebody's got to keep all of that going. And a lot of times it lands onto her. This ties into what she wants, which is fulfillment and meaning. And she needs duty. She needs something to be responsible for. And later on in Sleeping in Light, where she's a general and she's just kind of going through the motions of life, she has lost that purpose. She doesn't know what the meaning of her life is. I mean, yeah, you've got the more subtle things, right? Like a title, and she can go wave in a parade and what have you, and people will just sing her praises in all of her glory. But that doesn't mean anything to her because it's hollow. It's hollow. She needs that inner core, and then becoming the head of the Rangers fulfilled that purpose for her. So that update, I think, kind of helped bridge a little bit of a gap where I didn't quite nail Ivanova down. But she is a stabilizer. She wants fulfillment and meaning. But you know what she also wants? She wants relief from the painful parts of her life. She's lost a lot of people. She's been through a lot of painful things through the loss of a lot of those people. She needs relief. And I really don't know. I wish we could have seen a little bit later. Could we see 5 years after Sleeping in Light? Is she doing better? I hope she's happy. Oh, my Susan, my Susan. Daniel Kaler says, Susan's so amazing. As far as I'm concerned, one of the best female characters created. I totally agree. She is a wonderful character. She's not by any means a Mary Sue, which unfortunately gets assigned to a lot of female characters because they just have to be so freaking good at everything to prove their worth because they're women, right? No, she's a flawed, feeling human being. She doesn't get it all right. But do we love the crap out of her? We love her for that. But she's also very good at her job. She is also a complete human being. She's got it all going on, as every character should. I really thank JMS for doing that. He doesn't write just strong women. He writes strong people. That's super important. Slice of Sci-Fi says Ivanova focuses on others to avoid processing her own pain and trust issues. It's true. We saw it in season 1 after her father died, how she buried herself in her work until Okoyosel came out and made her face the death of her father and process it, right? Which, when you think about how she didn't process Marcus giving his life for her, 20 years on, that's a long, horrible grieving process, right? Yeah, I have a feeling that's exactly what she did. She buried herself in her work for a little while, captaining a deep space starship. And then when that was done, sitting at a desk gave her way too much time to think. And, you know, that's why she's a very unhappy human being at that point. Terry Jones says, Space Time and the Incurable Romantic does give a little bit of how she was after sleeping in light and the high regard she was held in by the Minbari and the Rangers. Yes, yes. I mean, she's definitely a kind of revered warrior type, right? She was on the front lines fighting, decorated by not just humans and Earth Force, but also the Minbari and the Rangers, certainly. Yes, yes. Sorry, got an itch in my ear. You get all the nitty gritty details today. Since it's just me, you're going to hear me yakking about a whole lot of nonsense. Norm's not here to keep me in check, so with the babysitter out, all hell goes. Final point on Ivanova. What would Ivanova say her cause is? Loyalty. Loyalty to those whom she trusts. And we see that throughout. At least I got the impression in early season 2, watching it for the first time, I trusted John J. Sheridan because Ivanova trusted him. She said he's an okay guy. Okay, he's an okay guy in my book, too. And that kind of went in contradiction to, okay, who's this new guy? Is he a good guy? Is he a bad guy? I kind of feel like JMS wanted us to question that a little more, but he kind of gave away his hand with Ivanova, if you ask me. So I want to know what you guys think about that. Was I right? Was I wrong? What did you think when you were watching that for the very first time? Do you remember your first impressions? Let's discuss. In the meantime, let's move to another fantastic lady character, and that is, of course, Delenn. Who is she? She is the driving force of the change. She believes in the prophecy. She wants to see it fulfilled, and that is what she wants. And she is also the one kind of guiding John and, well, pretty much everybody into this whole thing with the oncoming darkness. We get warned for a full season. This is going to happen. This is going to happen. And the more information we get, the more she is right. So she is the driving force for change. And of course, because of comes the Inquisitor, we know her cause, defending and protecting life. Her cause is life. Doesn't matter if it's one life or a million, right? She's going to go for it. She's going to preserve as much life as she can. That is Delenn. We saw little hints that the Minbari are reasonably influenced by the Vorlons. This was something that I made a note of while I went back and watched Norm last week. Definitely the connection there. The Vorlons are definitely steering the Minbari kind of conversation, right? For sure. I would definitely say that the Minbari are more inclined to be on the side of the Vorlons as opposed to the Shadows in terms of the big conflict with the older races. Yeah. The Minbari, being an older race themselves, probably see the logic and the reason of the Vorlons with them being those parents, right? Because that's ultimately how I feel everything resolved itself, was John and Delenn telling both of their parents, look, get out of here. We're fine. And so the Minbari, though, definitely sided with that person in the divorce from the first big war. And then the Shadows, meanwhile, talking to other folks. Yes. All right. Let's go on to Londo, shall we? Who did I say he is? He is the dreamer. He has high hopes. He has big ideas, has no idea how to get there. That's how Morden is able to help him fill those blanks, right? Yes, yes. Londo wants to restore greatness to his people. Later, I'd say that switches a little bit. Then he just wants to fulfill his destiny. He knows how damned he is, right? He has screwed up a lot of chances to go back on it. he reaches that point where he just decides, okay, I'm locked in. This is what I asked for. This is what I'm getting. I may not like all of it, but this is what I have to do now. And so he resigns himself to that. And it's everything he wanted and not at all what he wanted at the same time. Careful what you wish for, right? Yeah. Good lesson. Daniel Keller has chimed in. Let's turn to comments here. Think you're right. I had serious doubts on my first run on Sheridan. I'm a huge Sinclair fan. You know what? My husband was too. And we're watching Babylon 5 for the first time. When Sinclair was suddenly just plucked away, he's like, what the hell? He was not happy. And I have a feeling, especially in the first airing, a lot of people had that reaction. We were just getting to know the guy, and then he's gone. Ugh. And in real time, you have no idea if he's coming back or not. So that had to have been painful. Continuing with your comment, John does eventually win you over. Having Susan's approval only solidifies that. Yeah, you guys, when did John Sheridan kind of get your seal of approval? Was it right away? Did he have to work at it a little bit? What was that moment that clinched it for you? Now, I already gave away my thing, which was Ivanova, but was there any one particular thing that really stood out? Just throwing that question out there. I mean, when you bring in a character who was instrumental in the Earth Minbari War and has the nickname Star Killer, well, there's a part of you that wants to like that because as a human, you think, okay, he's good for us. But also, we know that there's a lot of gray ground there, and not everybody's going to agree with it, especially the Minbari. So definitely some mixed thoughts as far as Sheridan went with that very first introduction. Terry Jones says of Londo, let's go back to Londo, he got all he wanted, but none of the choices. Indeed. And again, this is a big pattern for Londo, starting right off the bat, is he kind of knows the end goal, but he has no idea how to get there and how to do it properly. Like, there's no real good planning on his part. He just knows what he wants. And then when Morden starts taking care of the rest, getting rid of all the choice that he had. So his cause is power and influence. That's what he wants. That is what he's fighting for. Sometimes that's what he's fighting, period. Later on, when he's so freaking doomed. Poor Londo. And yet, as I'm watching Babylon 5 with my husband and getting a first-timer's point of view, I'm starting to feel less and less sorry for Londo. I really empathized with him first few times I've watched this show, but you know what? Not so much this time. It's changed. Like, dude, bruh, if you could take any step back and look at the bigger picture, you could have reversed course a long time ago and you just chose not to. It's getting harder for me to forgive him as much as I love him, but that's the transformation of that character, right? Babylon 5 is just such a beautiful show, you guys. This is why Norm and I do the Zocalo. It's just so freaking rich, and no matter how many times you watch this show, there is something new here. There's that many layers. You just have to peel back something new that you hadn't even considered. It's so great. Speaking of great, let's go to Jakar. This is another one I updated. Initially, I said he is the voice of reason, but that's not complete. If you really have to succinctly put it down, you know who he is? He is the warrior. He starts out being that vindictive Narn who just wants revenge, right? And then turning that, he transforms, as we love, into this man who is leading his people for a cause, learning the power of sacrificing for the greater good. And that's how he gets what he wants, which is peace and prosperity and equality. He is kind of a Martin Luther King of the Narn, of this day, what have you. His cause, fighting for the greater good. Because in a sense of, in the same way John is fighting for what is right, this is also how Jakar is fighting for what is right. That's kind of where I'm coming from on that. Although Slice of Sci-Fi has another great word. Jakar is the visionary. Oh, you nailed that. That's perfect. He is a visionary. That's so freaking good. He is a voice of hope. He is a voice of reason. He is, Jakar is just sanity later on. It's incredible. It's so good. Terry Jones says Joe actually says anyone who says they have no choice, it's because they've already made their minds up. Londo is a perfect example. Yes. And Terry, you've read Joe's autobiography a few times now, right? I've been just kind of putting the audiobook on infinite repeat in my car while I'm commuting to and from work. I have about half hour one way every day. So I'm getting an hour, 5 days a week. And that definitely applied to his life. He saw what his relatives were who played the victim and thought they had no choices. But feeling like you have no choice is in and of itself a choice. And Londo goes down that path. Once you say, I have no choice, you've made your choice. So good stuff. Good stuff. Terry also says Jakar was a priestly figure in season 1 and by any means necessary. It's true. We think of Jakar as more of a religious leader toward the end, just because so many people are following his good word in the book of Jakar to the point where he has to just run away from it all. But it didn't start there. It was way back in season 1. He was a leader of his people. It was just a smaller scale and maybe a scale with less meaning behind it at that point. He was doing it, I think, as maybe a part of ambassadorial duties, not so much because he had such profound things to say. Daniel Keller says, I'm going to need to plan a rewatch. Londo is another favorite character. So far with each run I've done, I still empathize with Londo. Hey, that I'm not shaming that. It's only really been in this last watch where I've decided Londo's kind of gone down a rung. I'm not saying you're going to do the same exact thing either. I think we all get very different things out of these characters, right? And we like them all, at different levels. Nothing wrong with that. Slice of Sci-Fi says Jakar could be called the dreamer, since he believes that by setting the example, he can encourage the Narn and others from other races to aspire to walk that higher road of peace and strength. Absolutely. He, I chose dreamer for Londo in a more direct sense, meaning he has the great ideas, has no idea how to execute them. Jakar is also a dreamer, yes, because he's the one who does the work and makes the plans to make them happen. He does the work, whereas Londo does not. He lets other people do the work and is therefore sentenced to eternal damnation, more or less. But I don't know. I'm still in love with the word visionary that you put out there. I feel like that's more powerful and more deserving of Jakar. And to that, I shall salute. Okay. Now, before we get on to Garibaldi, Slice of Sci-Fi has another comment. Wonder what the Minbari believe about true dreamers, same as true seekers. Ooh, could you elaborate? What are true dreamers? Because we know how they feel about seekers. They feel like that's a very noble cause. They believe it. You're looking for the Holy Grail? Power to you. Peace be with you. True dreamers. I would love to know more about what you mean by that. And maybe we can keep the convo going from there. Back to the list. Let's talk about Garibaldi. Now, I got to be honest, as we keep going down the list, I'm not entirely sure if I've nailed these. So you know what? I'm looking forward to your input on them. But let's do Garibaldi. Who is he? He is the equalizer. He is in and of himself a stabilizing force just because he is the one who's upholding the rule of law on Babylon 5, right? He's chief of security. That's his job. But really what he wants is stability. He's a man who's running scared all the time because of the job, because of all that he has to hold down to keep people safe, but also within himself, knowing that one weak moment and he's going to go running back to the bottle. And every person who's been an addict knows that fear that it could happen at any time. You have to come to terms with the fact that you're never out of the woods, no matter how many years sober or clean or what have you. It could always come roaring back, and you've always got to be diligent about that. Garibaldi is overly aware of that, and to the point where he's not at peace. I would say never in his 5 years on Babylon 5, never at peace. Never. And he nails that home in Confessions and... No, wrong episode. Ceremonies of Light and Dark. I'm getting my episode titles wrong. Where he confesses to Delenn in the ceremony. Nobody knows, but I'm scared all the time about what might happen. He rehearses every possible scenario in his head so that if and when it happens, he's ready. He has got to be ready. He doesn't like to be caught off guard. And so that's why he wants peace so damn much. Now, his cause is fighting for the... Wait, nope, that's Jakar. His cause is believing in the rule of law and defending against those who violate it. Justice. I could have just narrowed that down to justice. I wasn't thinking that concisely. And I would say even after security, when he's taking over Edgar's Industries and he's bringing in the quote-unquote little people who complain all the time, who think that nobody's doing their jobs right, that is also kind of that's an equalizing force, right? Where he's giving them a fair chance. But he'll also eat them for lunch if they screw up. That's Garibaldi, isn't it? Eye for an eye, right? That's the kind of guy he is. Let's get back to some comments. Okay. Going to Slice of Sci-Fi on the Minbari. Thank you for elaborating. What do you got to say here? The ones who shape the future be the strength of their belief in being able to change the world. Yeah. Okay. So these are more the philosopher type people who have these ideas, who are being visionaries for the future, giving us hope, giving us light, trying to help us make sense of all the crazy things going on. Oh, I think Minbari culture would give their infinite blessing, don't you think? Everybody chime in. I want to know. That's where I stand on that. I think there's got to be just a whole colony of Minbari philosophizers just hanging out, doing their noble thing. That would make a lot of sense to me. Slice of Sci-Fi also says they don't know they can't change the world, so they are rarely stopped from doing so. Yeah. Oh, and okay, here's the exact quote from Garibaldi. I'm afraid of what might happen if I ever let go. Right. He's always on his guard, isn't he? Yep. He just can't do it. Really, I don't think we got to see the full effect of him letting go. And I don't know if he fully does, but he does seem a lot happier and a lot at peace when we see him in Sleeping in Light. He's got Lise. He's got his daughter. He's running this gigantonormous corporation. He's having a good life. He's definitely more at peace. He's definitely a happier person. In terms of like, has he let go? I doubt it. I doubt it. I think he's found some middle ground, though, enough to make him happy. And it just occurred to me on my list, who's missing is Franklin. Well, let's improvise. Let's take care of that right now after I read Slice of Sci-Fi's newest comment. Garibaldi I thought was a control freak, but later I wondered if that was a manifestation of severe anxiety. You know, that's a really good point. You know, on the outside, he might look like a control freak just because he is on top of everything as the head of security, right? Like almost to the point of maybe debilitating those underneath him from doing their jobs fully because he's taking care of it. But no, I really do think underlying all of that is that anxiety, all of it, all the time about everything. That takes a lot of energy to just even maintain, and if you let it go unchecked, it'll just consume you, which is what I think ultimately did lead Garibaldi to the bottle in season 5. Is he reached a breaking point where he couldn't take it anymore, right? After all that Bester did, after everything that he had been through, fighting 2 freaking wars, he's got nothing left. And what do you do when you have nothing left? You have to turn to a crutch, and there's alcohol. Bam. Oh. Yeah, guys. Thank you so much for all of your comments. This has been a lot of fun. Let's keep this convo rolling, shall we? We are just about halfway through, and we've still got a lot of characters to go through. Let's improvise. Let's do Dr. Franklin. Who is he? I mean, if you want to be a little direct with his career path, he's not, I mean, he's a healer, yes, but that is not at the heart of it who he is. That is more in line with title, right? So who is he at the heart of it all? He's no longer the runaway after Walkabout. Who is he after that? This is a really good question because I just finished watching with Patrick Shadow Dancing, where he resolves his Walkabout. Help me out here, guys. I need that word. Let's see what you got, and we'll come back to it. What does he want? I think what he really does want, though, is to help people. And he does that through his profession. He has a big heart. He really does want to help people. However, we know that he's flawed a lot of times by being so convinced that he is right. He has the power and the proof of science behind him that guides him, tells him that he is right. And we've seen that come into conflict a couple of times where dude just can't let go. And so really that's kind of his struggle, but his cause, you know, I keep narrowing it down to he just wants to help people, but I think really no, his cause is to be good, to do good. And that's tied, of course, to the profession. Once again, I feel like I'm a little too narrow here on Franklin. Please chime in with more perspectives. Knock me out of this rut I've put myself in. But really, though, that's so much of a part of who he is when he is doing good. And it's not just limited to MedLab. He wants to be a good friend. He wants to be a good person. Maybe that is the big thing after Walkabout is when he's stripped down to just, I am grateful for being alive, and he's putting meaning and purpose back into his life. You know, it's those simple things, those little things that make all the difference, that give us that greater meaning that we're seeking. It's not always epic. It's the small stuff. It's every little effort. It's that mindfulness. And he got a harsh reminder of that. Chiming back to Garibaldi for one quick second, while you guys are contemplating Franklin, I hope. Slice of Sci-Fi says Garibaldi has that internal scream going on. Oh, heck yeah. And you know what? I hate to admit it, but I understand that. The damn voice in my head when I don't know if any of you out there suffer from chronic anxiety or anything like that, generalized or even to the point of panic attacks. It's no fun. It's constant. I was born a nervous person. I was born with anxiety. I understand it. I understand it well. It sucks. All right. Moving on now, huh? Let's talk about Lanier. Again, I kind of feel like Lanier is maybe a little too narrow in my definition. So if you've got perspectives, put them out there. But who is he? He is devout. He has pledged himself to Delenn from the very moment he laid eyes on her. Before that, even. And he does it, I think, because that's his assignment that he's given. He's going to do his job. But once he gets to know her, then the love comes in. And that is what he wants. He wants love. And specifically from Delenn, where he can't get it. The poor guy. Uh, you know, I really want to know if you're willing to chime in here about what did you think of Lanier's end in season 5? I know this is a big point of contention for a lot of people. A lot of people are not happy with the way Lanier's story, it didn't even really wrap up, but that's where they left him. You know, the more that I watch season 5, the more that I realize he had this coming for a long time. There was no way he was going to resolve this in a good way. And you know what? Not every character gets a happy ending, and I can understand why that sucks, why Bill Mumy was unhappy because he did want his character to be a hero. But even Lanier himself says if you're doing the work for the wrong reasons, it becomes corrupted and impure. Lanier is living proof of that. He joined the Rangers to earn Delenn's respect, admiration, love in some way, like he could win her over. No, wasn't going to happen. And he, I think deep down he knew that, and yet he had to try. Dude was doomed to fail. There was no other, dare I say, there was no other choice, but he set himself up for that outcome, right? Tell me if I'm right or wrong. I really want to know. His cause is devotion. It's what he knows. It's what he lives. And, you know, he might live and die for the one because it's Delenn. And again, that's an impure cause. Boy, just no, no. Let's get to your comments here. Slice of sci-fi, PTSD. Oh my. Yeah, that's some serious stuff to deal with. I hope that you've gotten help dealing with that to try and process, just because that's a difficult thing to go through on your own. Head injury didn't help later. No, I imagine not. Yikes. No fun. No fun. Daniel Keller says about Franklin. Oh, we've got some good comments coming in on Franklin. Thank you, you guys. You're great. Franklin is the unsung hero, even more so than Garibaldi. He is the working class man. He works hard, a lot of times doesn't get enough recognition. Absolutely. Yes. We know that Franklin is so good at his job. We just expect him to do 100% all the time. Is it any wonder that to maintain that level of performance, as things just start getting crazier and crazier, he turns to the stims? Because that's what he needed to do to keep holding down his fort. In the same way that Ivanova's holding down CNC, the chaos in MedLab. They're understaffed, there's too much going on. He's doing the best he can under really difficult circumstances. All of the characters are. But yeah, you know what? Franklin doesn't get enough credit. You're so right. Yeah, I really like that. And I kind of like the way you shadow Garibaldi in there too, where we expect him to just keep himself together, keep things rolling, right? And I hadn't thought about Garibaldi as an unsung hero. Hmm. Yeah. Yeah. Kind of. For whatever reason, I don't see him as unsung as Franklin. Maybe it's because he gets more screen time or something. I don't know. I'd say Franklin is the more unsung hero for sure. Slice of Sci-Fi says Franklin seems to be the fixer, but what we saw him grow from being concerned only about physical healing to seeing the being as a whole, emotional and physical. Yeah, he did start from a very stubborn man in Believers, one of Norm's very favorite episodes, to maybe having a more holistic approach because of what he went through. That's a really good point. So for him, that's a good evolution. He needed that very much. Slice of Sci-Fi also says, and we know that love can make people do crazy things, especially if it's one-sided. That's regarding Lanier, and that explains the incident where he was going to leave Sheridan trapped to suffocate, right? I mean, it's painful watching that happen. And it's kind of why he stammers. He runs off at first, right? And then he's like, no, I can't do that. The higher brain functions finally kicked in, but there was that deep down, that id that told him, that impulse of, well, if Sheridan dies, I could be there for Delenn. It's an evil, horrible thought. He went there, acted on it for a fraction of a second, and then, better taste prevailed. But yeah, love can make you do crazy things. And yeah, especially when it's not reciprocated. That makes me think about Marcus and giving his life for Ivanova. I mean, it's not nearly, it's unrequited for sure, but it's not quite the same as Lanier. I mean, Ivanova, she just was not in a good place for a relationship at that point. Way too much happening. I mean, when you're in the middle of a war, it's not necessarily the best time or place. You're a little busy. But also think about how much hurt she's had and how closed off after Talia and what she went through with that, how closed off Ivanova was. Marcus didn't stand a chance. And even though he's trying really hard, almost to a point where I'm thinking, like in it with a 2019 lens, dude, bro, you have got to back off. And I almost hate saying that because for the longest time I thought, oh, it's so cute. But you know what? In today's world, Ivanova would do more than just give him a nasty glare. You know what I mean? Yeah. And yet I still ship him. So there's my walking contradiction moment of the day. Terry Lynn, Colorado is here. Hello. Thank you so much for joining. Hope you got some good writing done. That's fantastic. We're going through our characters, who they want, or who they want, what they want. Yeah, Freudian slip there. We know who Marcus wants. And speaking of which, let's talk about Marcus. Who is he? Here's what I put down. And I want to know what you guys think about. He is a rebel with a cause. He devotes his life to the Rangers after he loses everything, his family, his home, his love. That is the closest thing I could think of for Marcus. What he wants is inner peace. Very much. He has no peace. He has a lot of guilt. He has a lot of feelings unresolved, maybe a little less repressed anger, but nevertheless, this dude is, I mean, there's a reason why he's going after Ivanova in such an unrequited fashion and not caring about whether he gets anything back in return, right? Is he's sort of like a little lost puppy going up to her. Are you going to give me attention today? Huh, please? Kind of like that. It's not great, but it's understandable given who he is, where he's coming from. Now, I put his cause as ending turmoil. He does this by fighting in 2 wars. He has the hardest time with trying to do this within himself. He wants that inner peace, and I think he's seeking it through some sort of love and connection with Ivanova. And, had those two maybe come to terms with some sort of relationship, let's just say some in an imaginary season 5, what if they had pursued a relationship? Would that be a happy thing, or would it have just blown up in failure? I've read a lot of fanfic. There's so many different ways that could go, but that could have either ruined the man, it could have cemented him as a better person, or it could have put him through the ringer if the relationship hadn't worked out and made him realize you can't always find what you're looking for through other people. It's got to come from here. And maybe he would have started doing more of that work. That might have been really good for him. And then maybe if he had done some of that work, you know what? Then maybe he could have found that fulfilling relationship, whether it's with Ivanova or somebody else. Oh, Marcus. My heart does weep for him. Such a good and loving soul, but very messed up. Poor guy. He needed a lot of therapy. Where is the counselor on Babylon 5? Oh my God. There needed to be so many counselors. Terry says Marcus is the better looking rebel. Yeah. And you know what? The English accent doesn't hurt either. Gotta say. I'd go anywhere with him. It'd be an adventure. Now, I also don't have anything written in my notes for Veer. Shall we try and take a stab at Veer? Veer is a little bit of a question mark for me, just because a lot of times who he is the conscience, right? He's trying to give Londo a dose of reality. He's trying to be the voice of reason. He is, by a lot of accounts, not a big Centauri. I mean, he's not really doing what is typical of his people. He's the voice of reason, I guess, if you want to break it down to who are you? What does he want? I would say after all that he goes through, he wants truth and honesty. He's a simpler guy. He's a straightforward guy. I love Veer. I love his take. It's just, why does everything have to be so damn complicated? The poor guy, he gets brought into all of these things and they're just there to put him through the ringer. He's just shaking his head the whole time. A lot of times he's like the audience surrogate for us, I think. We're just like, Londo, no. And there's Veer saying, Londo, trying to inject a little bit of consciousness into Londo to give him some sort of moral right or wrong, whether it's Centauri or not. And a lot of times failing, unfortunately, but he's there. Veer is there. He's there to show us that not all Centauri are quite like Rifa, Londo, what have you. Cartagia, oi, poor guy. All right, let's get to some comments. Terry Lynn asks, are there any books that delve into their relationship after Babylon 5? I assume you mean Susan and Marcus. There is a short story written by Straczynski that deals with resolving, to some extent, Susan and Marcus and their relationship. I do not remember the title at this very moment. Maybe somebody can chime in, but there is a story out there, and for the most part, it's satisfying. You do find out what happens. It's good stuff. Terry also says Veer is Londo's straight man and yes, conscience. Yep, very much so. Very much. He is the conscience. Yeah. I love that Veer tries to do the right thing for the right reasons, even in the process of doing some wrong things in the process. Like when he's smuggling the Narns, and let's just put out Sick Transit Veer, where it all kind of goes to a head. He had to do something, right? His conscience wouldn't allow him to not do something. Now, is he doing potentially wrong things? Yes, illegally in that sense, but he's doing it because he's got a good heart and because he cares and because it is right. I gotta love Veer. All right. Terry also says he's there to bring out the Centauri Society, politics. Yeah, he's kind of the counter agent to that in a way, though. Just because he doesn't care about the colluding and the politicking, and he doesn't really want to fall for the shenanigans of the royal court. He doesn't care about their whims. He's he kind of wants to just go against all of that. I have a feeling Emperor Veer's legacy was a very different Centauri Prime. Probably had more order and honesty, transparency, and prosperity than the Republic had ever seen. He probably did what Londo wanted to do, which was to restore greatness to the Centauri Republic, but Londo didn't really have the skills to do that, whereas Veer had to take the only way he knew how and make it happen. There's a thought. Huh. Now, if you told Londo that, what would he think? Probably about as disturbed as when Lady Morella told both Londo and Veer that they'd each be emperor, right? One after the other. Oh my. Okay. So who are we forgetting here? I've gone down my list of who I have in my notes now. Who should we talk about? We still got a little bit of time left. Your comments have been fantastic. Thank you guys all so much for participating. Who should we go to? Should we talk about random things? My voice is getting a little... I haven't talked this much in a long time. Oh, let's talk about Jeffrey David Sinclair. Thank you, Terry. We should talk about our first captain a little bit more. We did at the very top of the show, but we didn't go into who he is and what he wants. Who is he? Let's okay. I got to think about this on the spot because again, this is not in my notes. He is the seeker. I think when we meet him in season 1, that is the one word I could boil it down to. He is seeking. He's looking for that meaning. What is his life for? What is his destiny? Why is there a hole in his mind? He is seeking answers to all of that. And then what does he want? He wants answers. I think he wants to be fulfilled in that sense. He wants to be a complete person. And by doing so, by becoming Valen and resolving his arc, that does it. And his cause is to bring prosperity to the Minbari 1,000 years ago, if you ask me, by becoming Valen. Their guiding light as we know it. What do you think about that? I made that up just now. Is it incomplete? Because it's hard to think thoroughly on the spot, but breaking it down, I'm trying so hard just to be very concise and break down all of these characters. You could go into entire monologues on each of these characters, but if you're looking for that instant answer to whether it's like a pass or a fail, what is it? That's kind of what I'm going for here. So that's what I would say Sinclair is. And, Sinclair, the more I watch season 1, the more Sinclair was a really good character. And especially knowing now what happened with Michael O'Hare, what he was going through at that time is amazing. I keep looking as I watch season 1 for hints of, his condition, what was happening to him in his performance. I don't see it. That's how good of a performer he was. That's amazing. I mean, talk about an underappreciated character, actor, life. My goodness. It's really tragic what happened to him. I wish he would have found some peace, but I kind of wonder, and especially after reading Joe's autobiography, detailing a little bit about where his state was in season 1 of Babylon 5, was it already a little too late? Like, if they'd caught it a little earlier, could they have gotten him on meds a little sooner? Would that have slowed the process down? Would he still be with us? Would he still be performing even? We won't know, but it gets my mind rolling. It's speculating. Terry says he was just put on B5 without a plan, unlike John. I don't think that's accurate. Now, listeners, please chime in, but I do believe the Minbari requested Sinclair to be the commander of Babylon 5. He was not Earthforce first choice. There were other people above him in the Minbari, for their part of helping construct Babylon 5, said, no, we want this guy, and they kind of relented and let him go. That's how I remember it. If I'm inaccurate, please let me know. Open up your Babylon 5 encyclopedias. Mine's in the other room, so I'm not going to go do that right now. But I believe that's what happened, is he was appointed, but by the request of the Minbari. All right, Daniel Keller chimes in and says, Sinclair is so damn awesome. Describing him as the Seeker is good. Cool, thank you. Good. Validation. Is a working class man, and that's what I loved about him. Yeah, you know what that brings to mind is the episode By Any Means Necessary with the workers' strike. He has no problem understanding where they're coming from. He empathizes with what they're going through, their side of things. And that comes from kind of a working class mentality, right? If you were some stuffy general or higher up, you probably wouldn't have that perspective. And therefore, working class is that's a good description for him. Even though he's in a position, you could still feel like you could have a beer with him. Heck yeah. Yeah. You could head down to Earhart's at the end of a long day, slog down a beer or two with him, and you'd have a good time. For sure. Yeah. Oh, Jeff didn't have the plan as John did. Do you mean, Terry, the whole thing of taking Babylon 4 back and what have you? I'm a little unclear as to what you mean about that. So if you can elaborate, please do. We've got just under 8 minutes left, and then we're going to wrap up this show. So while we're waiting on your final comments, if you've got final words, please let me know, and then we'll wrap up with that. I want to remind you, if you're not following us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Zocalocast is where you can find us on Twitter and Instagram. And of course, we've got the Facebook group. Just so you guys know, I closed my Facebook account, and it was really tough deciding to do that because of the group that we have. I miss that community, but Facebook as a platform is something I've been turned off to for a long time, and I just really wanted to cut ties with it. I'm trying very hard to focus on things that I want to do, things like writing, projects. My schedule does not allow for a whole heck of a lot of free time anymore, and so I'm trying to just really minimize, do the very best that I can. And therefore, that had to be a sacrifice that I made in order to do that. Now, personally, if you do want to chat me up, as some of you do, you can hit me on Twitter. That is the one thing that I have, and that my handle is the profanity there. Norm tends to do a lot of the Zocalocast interaction, but you can hit me up there. Just he'll let me know it after a fashion. Also, you notice that I'm wearing a tee. Got to pimp the merch, right? That helps kind of help keep us paying the bills, keep us going. There are some operating costs associated with doing a vidcast, and that's one way that you can support us, along with your participation and your follows, like, subscribes, all that fun stuff. You can go to tpublic.com, search for zcast_designs. You can get yourself a green shirt if you're a Green Follows Green leader. You can be stunning in purple. You can be the white star. We've got all sorts of fun descriptions for a variety of products. If you're not into teas, there's mugs, there's all sorts of fun stuff. So if you haven't checked that out lately, check that out. And we really do appreciate those of you who have already supported us through that. You guys are amazing. You're a wonderful community. We thank you so much. Slice of Sci-Fi says new Babylon podcast episodes are live and coming. I've heard about this podcast, and it's apparently a podcast that's been around for quite some time, in the mid-2000s, where they've gone through every episode. They've had interviews with a lot of people involved with Babylon 5. I'm going to start going back and listening to them, seeing what's up. because I missed it in its day. So that's exciting, and I'm glad they're producing new content. That's fantastic. The more Babylon 5 content, the better, right? The show is long over. We're probably not going to get more new stuff. It's up to us to keep the flame alive. So, yeah, that's awesome. I will check them out. Going to Terry here, what caused the Minbari to choose him or even consider what he was? Um, I kind of feel like in a way it's paradoxical, right? That's the word, right? Anyway, when they kidnap him and they're torturing him on the Battle of the Line, and they see that he, has the tie to Valen, he wouldn't have had that had he not gone back in time and become Valen, and yet without that, they would have probably just maybe killed him, ejected him, what have you. Wouldn't have mattered, and it wouldn't have had meaning. But because of that, it's sort of like the A leads to B leads to C, cyclical, weird time travel, timey-wimey effect that saved him. Then they said, what's going on here? This is interesting. They weren't expecting it, and thus ended the Battle of the Line. So it was a little bit by happenstance, and yet seriously important. So I don't know if that answers what you were talking about, Terry, but that's what I can distill out of that. I'm losing words. You guys. Sunday morning, sometimes it's not my best moment. Daniel Keller says, I feel that if Michael O'Hare didn't have the issues he had behind the scenes, there definitely would have been more Sinclair. Absolutely. And out there somewhere on the interwebs is the alternative version of Babylon 5 that would have kept Sinclair on for a little bit longer and had a little bit of a different storyline. I don't remember exactly where you can find that, but if you search around, there is kind of like that original alternate take of Babylon 5 had Sinclair been able to stick around as a character. Oh, Slice of Sci-Fi says, I was the co-host of Babylon podcast, and one of the reasons I am still alive these days. Slice of Sci-Fi, I didn't know you were one of the co-hosts. I feel so stupid. Whoops. Well, in that case, I'm definitely going to tune in just so I can hear your voice. And I'm glad that it's helped get you through some difficult times. It sounds like you have been through a lot. And you know what? One of the great things about doing a show like this every week, as you did a podcast, as I'm doing this now, and I've been doing, content for years, sometimes it is the one thing that you have to look forward to. Just to get in front of a mic and talk with people who you appreciate and enjoy, talk about something you're passionate about. I get it. Sometimes it's that one thing that'll help you get through. It's certainly been that for me at times too. Terry says, I'm tired. Yeah, talking for about an hour straight by myself, that's a lot. And yes, you're here, but I'm the one in front of the mic. I'm the one who's got to keep it going. Norm, I miss you. I really want you to come back next week. Okay, bud? Now I know what you went through last week. Oh my goodness. Woof. So, okay, Summer. Yeah. All right. I know so little about your podcast at this point. I didn't even realize that the name. Okay. Yeah. All right. I'm going to subscribe the moment that I turn this off and start listening. While I'm at work, I listen to a lot of podcasts, so I will definitely add that to my feed. So that's going to be a lot of fun. Something to look forward to. It's going to be great, especially when I'm hitting Monday, which are typically very difficult days at work. We have a lot of catch-up work we have to do because we close down for the weekends, which means orders come in. And as things just accumulate without keeping the train rolling, it's a lot. So while I'm choking through all of that, I'll be listening to you and enjoying some Babylon 5, and that's going to be a beautiful thing. Daniel Keller says, I'm here in AZ, and I thought we escaped the summer heat. Ooh, are you in Phoenix, in that area, Tempe, where you're in the lower elevations? Because, boy, yeah, the hot air, it's not leaving this area for a while, and you have it way worse than we do in SoCal. At least it's calming down and cooling off at night here, but it's still hitting the 80s and 90s for highs. And, I'm ready for fall. I really am. And part of that is due to my job, where I'm in a kind of a warehouse portion for a lot of my day. And we're at the whims of the weather. We have a lot of heat presses because I work with t-shirts, and all those heat presses basically make the warehouse 10 degrees warmer than it is outside. And so if it's 100 outside, it's 110 in the warehouse. And so I drink a lot of water. And then I go home and I'm pretty zapped. That's how that's been going down. Terry says the dark mirror universe to the television show Babylon 5. I'm not exactly sure what that means. I don't know. We are unfortunately running out of time, though. So if you want to contact and let us know, you can keep putting stuff into the comments and we can look at it a little bit later in the show. You're always welcome to do that. You can also Gmail us, zocalocast@gmail.com. And then, of course, the social channels, like I mentioned earlier, Zocalocast on Twitter, Instagram, and of course, there's the group on Facebook. I said book. I kind of have Joe's autobiography still on the brain. I can't quit it. It's so freaking good and so inspirational to me right now. It's helping me kind of reinvigorate my own love for writing at this point. And like Joe had to, I'm going through a lot of crap. I'm burning through all the crap. And boy, there's still a lot of crap yet to be had. But I hope eventually I kind of shake off the rust in my own writing because it's been a while. And I got to say, Twitter has not been very good about writing skill. It's helped me be very concise, 200 some characters. But as far as putting a lot of thoughts together, well, you don't really do that on Twitter. And a lot of my writing has been on Twitter. So we got a lot of bad habits to break. All that said, guys, thank you so much for joining me. I appreciate all of your comments. This was fantastic. So much fun. I don't know what we're doing next week. Norm and I have to decide that when he gets back from his away mission. And hopefully he comes back in one piece. He better. I don't want to do this all by myself again, although I really appreciate all of your comments and kind of helping me guide this conversation. Hope you all have a great rest of your weekend, and we will see you again next Sunday. Take care, everybody.